The air in the UEC detention block stank of rust and sweat, a fitting tomb for men like Jace Cade. He sat on the edge of his cot, elbows on knees, staring at the flickering hollow display on the wall. The news feed looped the same grainy footage, a Kryn scout ship, all jagged spines and pulsing red lights, carving through a lunar outpost like a blade through meat. 200 dead in under a minute. The anchors called it a tragedy. Jace called it a warning. He ran a thumb over the scar on his left cheek, a jagged line from a shrapnel blast in the Sahara Resource Wars. That was 6 years ago, back when humanity's biggest enemy was itself. Now, the Kryn were coming, and they didn't give a damn about oil fields or border disputes. They wanted everything. And Jace, court-martialed for putting a bullet in his CO's skull to save his squad, was apparently the kind of bastard the United Earth Coalition needed to fight them. The cell door hissed open, and a woman in a crisp UEC uniform stepped in. Commander Elena Voss, all sharp angles and colder eyes, looked like she'd rather spit on him than talk. "Cade," she said, voice like a blade. "You're reinstated. Effective immediately." Jace didn't look up. "Thought I was a liability, Commander. Something about unstable tendencies?" "You are," Voss said. "But you're also the best we've got." The Kryn hit another colony last week. They're not probing anymore. They're preparing. She tossed a data slate onto the cot. It hummed to life, showing a 3D render of a space station. Asterisk the Crucible star. A fortress of black steel and glowing conduits orbiting a red dwarf star. 10,000 souls, Cade. Soldiers, scientists, engineers. That's where we make our stand. Jace picked up the slate, squinting at the station specs. 50 decks, plasma cannons, fighter bays, enough room to house an army. He whistled low. Big cage for a lot of rats. Voss didn't blink. "Get up. The Defiant leaves in an hour." The shuttle ride to orbit was a bone-rattling affair, the kind that made your teeth ache and your guts churn. Jay strapped into a jump seat beside a dozen other recruits, most of them green, their eyes wide with the kind of fear you get when you realize the universe doesn't care if you live. He didn't bother learning their names. Odds were half wouldn't make it through the week. The Defiant, a UEC warship, loomed in the void like a predator. Its hull was scarred from meteor impacts and pirate skirmishes, but its engines burned hot, ready to punch through to the stars. Jace watched Earth shrink through a porthole, a blue marble scarred by war and greed. He didn't miss it. The jump to the Crucible took 3 days, most of it spent in the ship's armory, where Jace cleaned his rifle with a reverence most reserved for prayer. The Kryn didn't fight like humans. No mercy, no surrender, just a swarm that kept coming until you were pulp or they were ash. He'd seen the vids, soldiers torn apart by claws that moved like lightning, ships gutted by bioplasma that melted steel like wax. If humanity was going to survive, it'd be through blood and iron. When the Defiant docked at the Crucible, Jace felt the station scale before he saw it. The airlock groaned as it cycled, and a low hum vibrated through the deck, a pulse like a living thing. The station was a beast, a city in the void, its corridors wide enough for tanks and its ceilings lost in shadow. Hollow displays flickered with battle plans, and soldiers in exosuits drilled in zero-G arenas, their movements sharp and brutal. Jace's squad was waiting in Base 17, a motley crew of killers and dreamers. There was Rico, a wiry explosives tech with a death wish, Sanaa, a sniper who spoke in clipped sentences, and Shun, a scientist who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Voss introduced them with a curt nod, her eyes lingering on Jace. "Don't screw this up, Cade. We're not fighting for glory. We're fighting to exist." He smirked. "Same thing, Commander." That night, Jace stood at an observation window, staring into the void. The red dwarf star burned like a wound in the black, and somewhere out there, the Kryn were gathering. He could feel it, the way a predator smells blood. The war was coming, and the Crucible was humanity's last bastion. 10,000 souls, ready to burn the stars to ash if it meant survival. A klaxon blared, shattering the silence. Red lights pulsed, and Voss's voice crackled over the comms. "All hands, battle stations. Kryn scout ships inbound." Jace grabbed his rifle and ran, his boots pounding the deck. The station shook as plasma blasts hit its shields, and in the chaos, he felt alive. This was what he was made for. Not peace, not redemption, but the fight. The Kryn wanted a war. He'd give them one they'd choke on. The Klaxons screamed like banshees, their wail cutting through the steel arteries of the crucible. Jace Cade sprinted down Corridor 12, his rifle slung across his back, the weight of it grounding him as the station shuddered under the Kryn's opening salvo. Red emergency lights bathed the walls in blood, and the air buzzed with the static of comms traffic. Panicked voices barked orders, the chaos of a war no one was ready for. Move, move, move. Jace roared at his squad, trailing behind him. Rico, the wiry demolitions tech, clutched a satchel of plasma charges, his grin manic. Sanaa, the sniper, glided silently, her scope already clipped to her rifle. Dr. Chun stumbled, his lab coat flapping, a data slate clutched like a shield. Jace grabbed Chin's arm, hauling him forward. Keep up, Doc, or your bug food. The observation deck had shown Jace the void's truth. The Kryn weren't coming to negotiate. Their scout ships, sleek, organic monstrosities like hornets carved from obsidian, swarmed the station's outer defenses. Plasma lances from the Cruciblist turrets lit the void, but the Kryn ships danced through the barrage, their hulls shimmering with adaptive shielding. Jace had seen vids of their attacks, but this was different. This was real, and it was now. Base 17's hangar was a hive of control chaos. Pilots scrambled into Viper-class fighters, their engines screaming as they launched into the black. Ground crews hauled ammo crates, and exosuited Marines locked into drop pods for boarding actions. Commander Elena Voss stood on a raised platform, her holo display projecting the battle in real time. 3 Kryn scout ships, each the size of a frigate, were hammering the station's portside shields. A 4th was deploying boarding pods, spiky, tumor-like things that latched onto hulls and vomited warriors inside. Cade, Voss's voice cut through the din. She pointed at a hollow of the portside breach. They're hitting Deck 42. If they take the reactor core, we're done. Your squad's on point. Get there, hold the line. Jace gave a mock salute, his scarred face twisting into a smirk. Thought you didn't trust me, Commander. I don't, Voss snapped. But you're expendable. Prove me wrong. The mag lift to Deck 42 was a rattling death trap, the station's tremors making it lurch like a drunk. Jace checked his gear, an M77 pulse rifle, 2 plasma grenades, and a monomolecular knife strapped to his thigh. His squad was light, 4 against who knows how many Kryn, but Jace had fought worse odds in the Sahara. Numbers didn't win wars. Well, did. Rico, you got breaching charges? Jace asked, voice low. Rico patted his satchel. Enough to blow a hole to hell, boss. Sanaa, you're on Overwatch. Pick off anything with too many legs. She nodded, her eyes cold as the void. Got it. Chun, stay behind us. You're here to learn, not die. The scientist swallowed, his face pale. Their biology, it's not just insectoid. They adapt. Fast. If they've got a queen nearby. Then we kill it. Jace cut him off. Focus, document. The lift doors hissed open, and the stench hit first. Acrid, like burnt copper and rot. Deck 42 was a maze of coolant pipes and power conduits. The reactor cores hum a constant pulse in the walls. Emergency lights flickered, casting shadows that moved wrong. Jace raised his rifle, its HUD syncing with his visor, painting heat signatures in green. 6 shapes, 2 fast, 2 angular, skittered around a corner. Kryn, Sanaa whispered, her scope already tracking. Jace signaled for silence, crouching behind a pipe. The Kryn warriors were nightmares made flesh. 6 feet tall, their exoskeletons gleaming like wet obsidian, with 4-clawed arms and mandibles that clicked like gunfire. Their eyes, compound, glowing amber, scanned the dark. One carried a bioplasma launcher, its barrel oozing green ichor. Rico, flank left, Jace murmured. Sanaa, take the shooter. Chun, stay down. Sanaa's rifle cracked, a suppressed shot that punched through the Kryn gunner's skull. Green ichor sprayed, and the creature collapsed, its launcher clattering. The other screeched. a sound that clawed at Jace's spine, and charged. Rico rolled out, tossing a plasma charge that detonated in a blinding flash. 2 Kryn exploded into chunks, but the others were fast, too fast, leaping across pipes like spiders. Jace moved on instinct. Years of war burned into his muscles. He fired a burst, shredding one Kryn's torso, then ducked as another's claws raked the air where his head had been. He drew his knife, its blade humming with a molecular edge, and drove it into the creature's thorax. It screamed, thrashing, but Jace twisted the blade, feeling the crunch of exoskeleton. The Kryn went limp, its blood sizzling on the deck. Clear, Sanaa called, her second shot dropping the last one. Jace wiped his knife on his sleeve, breathing hard. Too easy. They're probing us. Chun crawled out, his data slate scanning the corpses. These are drones. Low tier. The hive mind's testing our response time. Then let's give him something to think about, Jace said, grabbing a Kryn claw as a trophy. Rico, set charges on that breach. No more bugs get in. The breach was a jagged wound in the station's hull, sealed by emergency shutters but crawling with Kryn pods. Jace's squad reached it as another wave hit, dozens of drones pouring through a fresh tear. The station's auto turrets roared, mowing down some, but the Kryn adapted, their exoskeletons hardening against the rounds. Jace saw one take a direct hit and keep coming, its wounds sealing like liquid metal. Rico now, Jace shouted. Rico slammed a charge onto the shutter's frame and dove back. The explosion rocked the deck, collapsing the breach in a shower of sparks and shrapnel. The Kryn screeched, cut off, but more were already inside, skittering through vents. Jace's HUD lit up with alerts. Deck 42 was compromised, and the reactor core was 3 corridors away. Voss, this is Cade. He barked into his comm, breach sealed, but we've got company. Need backup. Negative, Voss replied, her voice tight. We're stretched thin. Kryn ships are hitting the starboard docks. Hold the core, Cade, or we lose the station. Jace cursed under his breath. Sanaa, rooftop. Rico with me. Chin, don't die. They moved, a unit forged in the heat of combat. Sanaa climbed a maintenance ladder to a catwalk, her sniper rifle picking off Kryn with surgical precision. Jace and Rico pushed forward, their rifles blazing. The Kryn fought like a tide, relentless, their claws tearing chunks from the walls. Jace took a hit to his shoulder, a glancing claw that shredded his armor but missed flesh. He repaid it with a grenade, the blast painting the corridor in green gore. At the reactor core's entrance, they found Nightmare. A Kryn elite, taller, armored in spiked plates, its mandibles dripping venom, stood guard, flanked by drones. Chin gasped. That's a Praetorian. It's linked to the hive mind. Kill it, and the drones lose cohesion. Jace didn't hesitate. He charged, rifle blazing, drawing the Praetorian's attention. Its claws lashed out, faster than thought, but Jace rolled under, slashing its leg with his knife. The blade bit deep, and the creature staggered, screeching. Rico tossed a charge, and Sanaa's shot hit the Praetorian's eye, blinding it. Jace finished it, driving his knife into its skull, twisting until it collapsed. The drones faltered, their movements erratic. Jace's squad mopped them up, but the victory was hollow. The station shook again, harder this time. Voss's voice crackled through the comms. Cade, report. Core secure. Jace panted. For now. Good. Get to Hangar 9. We're launching a counterstrike. Your flying lead. Hangar 9 was a war zone, Viper fighters screaming out into the void as Kryn ships hammered the station's shields. Jace climbed into a cockpit, the controls familiar as a lover's touch. His squad loaded into their own fighters, Chun strapped into a co-pilot's seat, muttering about Kryn biology. The mission was simple. Take out the Kryn command ship, a bulbous monstrosity directing the swarm. As Jace launched, the void opened before him, a canvas of fire and death. The Crucible-esque cannons roared, and Kryn ships burned, but they kept coming. Jace weaved through debris, his Viper-esque thrusters screaming. The command ship loomed, its hull pulsing like a heart. He fired a missile salvo, but its shields flared, absorbing the hits. Chen, talk to me, Jace growled. How do we crack that thing? The core, Chen said, voice shaking. It's organic. Hit it with an EMP, then plasma. Jace grinned, a predator smile. Rico, you got an EMP charge? Always, boss. The squad dove, dodging bioplasma barges. Sanaa's fighter took a hit, spinning but recovering. Jace led the charge, his Viper skimming the command ship's hull. Rico fired the EMP, and the ship's shields flickered. Jace followed with plasma missiles, tearing into the core. The explosion was blinding, a supernova that lit the void. The Kryn swarm faltered, their cohesion shattered. But the victory was costly. The Crucible's shields were failing, and more Kryn ships were inbound. Jace landed, his fighter scorched, and met Voss's gaze in the hangar. We bought time, he said. Not much. She nodded, her face grim. Then we make it count. The hangar bay reeked of scorched metal and ozone, the aftermath of the Kryn's probing assault clinging to the Crucible like a bad dream. Jace Cade leaned against his Viper fighter, its hull still warm from the dogfight, and lit a contraband cigar he'd smuggled from Earth. The smoke curled upward, a fleeting rebellion against the station's sterile air. His squad was scattered nearby, Rico checking his plasma charges, Sanaa cleaning her rifle with obsessive precision, and Dr. Chen hunched over a Kryn claw, his data slate humming as it analyzed the alien's biology. Commander Elena Voss strode toward them, her boots echoing like gunfire. Her face was a mask of control, but Jace caught the flicker of exhaustion in her eyes. Cade, debrief. Now. He exhaled a plume of smoke, meeting her gaze. Kryn command ships down. Swarms disorganized, but they're not done. We've got maybe 6 hours before they regroup. Voss nodded, her jaw tight. We've got bigger problems. Deck 19's sensor grid went dark 10 minutes ago. No Kryn activity reported there, but the logs show unauthorized access. Someone's tampering with our systems. Jace's eyes narrowed. Sabotage. Looks like it. I need your squad to investigate. If the Kryn have a traitor in our ranks, we're screwed. Jace flicked the cigar away, watching it spark against the deck. Point me at him, Commander. I'll gut the bastard myself. Deck 19 was a labyrinth of server banks and power relays, the station's nervous system. The air was cold, thick with the hum of machinery, and the lights flickered erratically, casting long shadows. Jace moved at the head of his squad, his pulse rifle raised, HUD scanning for heat signatures. Rico flanked him, a plasma charge primed in one hand. Sanaa took the high ground, slipping onto a maintenance catwalk, her sniper scope glinting. Chun trailed behind, muttering about Kryn pheromones and neural overrides. Quiet. Jace hissed, halting at a junction. His HUD pinged. A single signature, human, moving fast. Got a runner. Sanaa, track him. On it, she whispered through the comms. A moment later, her voice crackled. Targets at the main relay hub. Male, tech uniform, carrying a data spike. Jace signaled Rico to move. They rounded a corner and found the traitor, a wiry tech named Harris, one of the station's engineers. He was jacked into the relay hub, a data spike glowing red as it uploaded something nasty into the Crucible's systems. Harris froze when he saw Jace, his eyes wide with panic. Step away, Harris, Jace growled, rifle trained on the man's chest. I paint the walls with you. Harris raised his hands, trembling. You don't understand, Cade. They're in my head. The Kryn, they promised. Jace didn't let him finish. He lunged, slamming Harris against the console, his knife at the man's throat. Promise what? A quick death? Spill it. They've got a queen, Harris stammered, sweat beading on his brow. On their hive ship. It's close, Cade. It's controlling everything. They said if I shut down the shields, they'd spare me. Chun pushed forward, his slate scanning Harris. He's got traces of Kryn pheromones in his blood. The hive mind's manipulating him. It's not just tech, it's biological. Jace pressed the knife harder, drawing a bead of blood. Where's the hive ship? I don't know. Harris gasped. They don't tell me coordinates. But it's near, cloaked, waiting for the shields to drop. Rico snorted. Pathetic. Let me blow him up, boss. Not yet, Jace said, his mind racing. A traitor in the crucible meant the Kryn were playing a deeper game. If the hive ship was close, it was the key to their swarm. Take it out, and the Kryn would scatter. But a cloaked ship meant a suicide run. No intel, no backup, just guts and luck. Jace knocked Harris out with a swift punch and turned to Chun. Doc, can you trace those pheromones? Find the hive ship. Chun hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. If I can analyze the signal patterns in Harris's blood, I might pinpoint the Queen's neural frequency. But I'll need time. You've got 2 hours, Jace said. Sanaa, secure Harris. Rico, rig this hub to blow if anyone else tries tampering. Voss's voice crackled through the comms. Cade, report. Got your traitor, Jace said. Harris. Kryn's got him on a leash. Says there are hive ships nearby. Cloaked. Chin's working on a lead. Voss cursed. If that ship's close, we're out of time. The station's shields are at 40%. Another hit, and we're exposed. Then we hit them first, Jace said. Give me a stealth viper. I'm going hunting. The hangar was a storm of activity. Techs scrambling to prep fighters as the Crucible S alarms wailed. Jace's modified Viper, the Nightshade, was a sleek predator, its hull coated in radar-absorbing nanotech. Chin had rigged a crude pheromone tracker, its display pulsing with faint signals. It wasn't much, but it was enough for Jace. He'd flown on worse odds. Rico and Sanaa, strapped into their own fighters, their faces grim. Chun, against Jace's protests, insisted on joining, citing the need to monitor the tracker. If the Queen's frequency shifts, you'll need me, he'd said. Jace didn't argue. Chin's brains might be the only thing keeping them alive. As they launched, the Crucible loomed behind them, its massive silhouette scarred by Kryn plasma burns. The void was alive with debris, wrecked fighters, Kryn pods, and the glowing husks of scout ships. Jace's HUD flickered as Chin's tracker pinged, a faint signal leading them toward a patch of empty space. Empty, but not quite. There, Chun said, his voice tight. Anomalies in the radiation field. It's cloaked, but it's there. Jace grinned, a feral edge to it. Time to knock. The Nightshade dove, its thrusters silent in stealth mode. The hive ship materialized as they closed, a grotesque mass of organic metal, its surface writhing like a living thing. Spires jutted from its hull, pulsing with bioluminescent light. Drones swarmed around it, their movements erratic without the command ship's guidance, but still deadly. Rico, EMPs ready? Jace asked. Locked and loaded, Rico replied, his fighter peeling off. Sanaa, cover us. Chun, find me a weak spot. The squad moved like a pack, Rico's fighter unleashing an EMP pulse that scrambled the drone sensors. Sanaa's precise shots took out stragglers, her Viper weaving through the chaos. Jace pushed the Nightshade toward the hive ship's core, Chin's tracker guiding him to a pulsing nodule, an entry point to the Queen's chamber. Ventral hull, Chun said. That's the access, but it's guarded. Heavy bioplasma turrets. Jace didn't flinch. Then we go in hot. The Nightshade screamed toward the hive ship, dodging plasma barges that lit the void like green lightning. A turret grazed his wing, sending sparks across the cockpit. Jace jinked hard, his instincts honed from years of war. Rico's EMP hit, and the turrets faltered. Jace fired a plasma missile, blasting open the nodule. A gaping maw yawned before them, oozing ichor. Brace yourselves, Jace growled, and plunged the Nightshade inside. The hive ship's interior was a nightmare of flesh and steel, its corridors lined with pulsating membranes. Drones skittered toward them, but Jace's fighter was too fast, its guns shredding anything that moved. Chin's tracker screamed, the Queen's signal overwhelming. They landed in a cavernous chamber, the Queen's lair, where the air thrummed with her presence. She was massive, 20 feet tall, her exoskeleton a throne of spines and claws. Her eyes glowed like dying stars, and her mandibles clicked in a rhythm that shook Jace's bones. Drones swarmed, protecting their mother. Rico charges, Jace shouted, leaping from the cockpit, rifle blazing. Sanaa took position, picking off drones with lethal precision. Rico tossed plasma charges, each explosion rocking the chamber. Chun stayed in the nightshade, his slate linked to the ship's systems, tracking the Queen's neural output. Jace fought like a demon, his knife and rifle a blur. He carved through drones, their ichor soaking his armor, and closed on the Queen. She lashed out, a claw grazing his side, but Jace rolled, planting a grenade in her flank. The blast staggered her, but she kept coming, her screeches deafening. Chun now, Jace roared. Chen's voice crackled. I've got her frequency. EMP pulse, full power. The Nightshade's EMP fired, and the Queen screamed, her drones collapsing as the hive mind fractured. Jace seized the moment, climbing her thrashing form, his knife plunging into her core. The Queen convulsed, her death throes shaking the ship. Jace barely made it back to the Nightshade as the chamber began to collapse. "Punch it!" he yelled, and the squad's fighters roared out, the hive ship erupting behind them in a cascade of fire and flesh. Back on the Crucible, the station was still standing, but barely. The Kryn swarm had scattered, their Queen's death breaking their cohesion, but the cost was high. Half the fighter wing was gone, and the shields were critical. Jace stood in the hangar, bloodied but alive, as Voss approached. "You did it," she said, her voice grudgingly impressed. But Harris wasn't the only traitor. We found two more. The Kryn's reach is deeper than we thought. Jace lit another cigar, his eyes on the void. Then we root him out, and when the next hive comes, we'll be ready. Jace Cade sat alone in his quarters on the Crucible, a cramped cube of steel and flickering lights that felt more like a cell than a home. The station's hum vibrated through the walls, a constant reminder of the war breathing down their necks. His rifle lay disassembled on the table, each piece polished to a mirror sheen, a ritual to keep his hands steady and his mind sharp. But tonight, the ghost wouldn't stay buried. He pulled a worn data chip from his pocket, its edges chipped from years of handling. It was the only thing he'd kept from Earth, a relic of the Sahara resource wars. Jace slotted it into his hollow projector, and a grainy vid flickered to life. A younger Jace, unscarred, grinning with his old squad in a desert outpost. They were laughing, passing a flask, their faces lit by a campfire under a sky unmarred by alien threats. Corporal Lena, Ghost Merrick, his best friend, ruffled his hair in the vid, her smile brighter than the stars. The memory soured. Lena was dead because of him. Not directly, but close enough. Their CEO, Major Brandt, had ordered a suicide charge against a fortified rebel bunker. Politics and greed dressed up as strategy. Jace had argued, begged, but Brandt wouldn't budge. When the order came, Jace refused, and Brandt pulled a gun. Jace was faster. One shot, and Brandt was gone. The squad survived, but Lena took a shrapnel blast, covering their retreat. She died in Jace's arms, her blood soaking the sand, her last words a whispered, "You did right, Reaver." The court-martial called it murder. Jace called it justice. They locked him away until the Kryn showed up, and suddenly a killer was useful again. The vid looped, Lena's laugh cutting deeper than any Kryn claw. Jace shut it off, his fist clenching until his knuckles whitened. He wasn't a hero, no matter what the UC brass thought. He was a blade, sharp and broken, good for one thing, killing what needed killing. A knock at the door snapped him back. Rico's voice came through, casual but tense. "Boss, Voss wants us. Briefing room, 5 minutes. Says it's bad." Jay stood, shoving the data chip back in his pocket. The pass could wait. The Kryn wouldn't. The briefing room was a sterile box of hollow displays and steel chairs, packed with the Crucible's top brass and squad leaders. Commander Elena Voss stood at the head, her uniform pristine despite the station's scars. Her eyes swept the room, lingering on Jace with a mix of distrust and reluctant respect. His squad, Rico, Sana, and Dr. Chun, sat nearby, their postures reflecting their natures. Rico slouched, twirling a detonator. Sana sat rigid, her sniper's focus unbroken. Chun fidgeted, his slate glowing with Kryn data. Voss activated the main hollow, projecting a starfield littered with red blips. Kryn ships, hundreds of them, massing beyond the red dwarf's corona. This isn't a skirmish, she said, her voice like tempered steel. It's an invasion. The hive ship Cade destroyed was a scout. The real fleet's coming. 3 hive ships, each with thousands of drones, plus a capital-class queen vessel. They'll hit us in 12 hours. Murmurs rippled through the room. Jace stayed silent, his mind already mapping the fight. Voss continued, our shields are at 30%. We've got 200 Viper fighters and a skeleton crew of capital ships. The Crucible is humanity's last stand. If we fall, Earth falls. Rico leaned toward Jace, whispering, we're screwed, yeah? Jace smirked. Not yet. Bugs bleed same as us. Voss's gaze locked on him. Cade, your squad's proven itself. You're leading the forward defense. Strike teams to hit their vanguard before they reach the station. But I need to know you won't go rogue. Not after Harris. The room tensed. Harris's betrayal had shaken the Crucible's morale, and Voss's words were a public jab at Jace's own history. He stood, meeting her stare. You want my leash, Commander? Fine, but you know why I shot Brandt. Save my squad, save the mission. I'll do the same here, whether you trust me or not. Voss's jaw tightened, but she didn't back down. Trust is earned, Cade. Don't make me regret this. Sanaa spoke up, her voice calm but firm. He saved us twice, Commander. That's enough for me. Rico grinned. Yeah, boss is a bastard, but he's our bastard. Chun cleared his throat, nervous. His tactics, they work. The Kryn don't expect human unpredictability. Jace embodies that. Voss's eyes softened, just a fraction. Then prove it. All of you. Dismissed. As the room cleared, Voss grabbed Jace's arm. One thing, Cade. I checked your file. Brandt wasn't the first CEO you clashed with. But Lena Merrick, she was why you broke, wasn't she? Jace's face darkened, his hand brushing the data chip in his pocket. You digging into my head, Commander? No, Voss said. But I need to know what drives you. If it's guilt, it'll get us killed. If it's loyalty, we might survive. He pulled away, his voice low. It's neither. It's making sure no one else dies on my watch. Not Rico, not Sanaa, not Chun, not you. Voss studied him, then nodded. Good enough. Get your squad ready. Outside, Rico clapped Jace's shoulder. She's got your number, boss. You gonna let her? Jace snorted. She could try. Let's move. The hours before the invasion were a blur of preparation. The Crucible hummed with activity. Techs welding hull breaches, pilots running sims, Marines loading drop pods. Jace's squad prepped in Hangar 9, their Viper fighters retrofitted with heavier plasma cannons and Chin's latest toy, a neural disruptor to jam Kryn hive signals. Jace checked his gear, his mind half on the fight, half on Lena's ghost. He'd failed her, but he wouldn't fail this squad. Chun approached, his slate glowing. I've refined the disruptor. It'll scramble drone coordination within a kilometer. But the Queen vessel, it's got a stronger signal. We need to get close, dangerously close. Jace nodded. Then we do. Sanaa, you're on Overwatch. Rico, blow anything that moves. Chun, stick with me. The invasion hit like a tidal wave. The Kryn fleet emerged from the Red Dwarf's corona, a swarm of black spires and pulsing hulls. 3 hive ships, each a kilometer long, led the charge, flanked by thousands of drones and the Queen vessel, a leviathan that dwarfed the Crucible. Its surface writhed, spawning pods like a diseased organ. Jace launched in the nightshade, his squad tight on his wings. The Crucible's cannons roared, tearing holes in the swarm, but the Kryn pressed forward, their bioplasma melting fighters into slag. Jace weaved through the chaos, his HUD screaming with targets. Sanaa, pick off the pod launchers. Rico hit the hive ship's vents. On it, Rico's fighter Dove, unloading EMPs and plasma charges. Vents erupted, crippling one hive ship, but the drones kept coming. Sanaa's shots were surgical, dropping launchers, but the Queen vessel loomed, its signal overriding Chin's disruptor. Chun, we need that disruptor maxed out. Jace barked, dodging a plasma lance. It's at full power. Chun shouted. We need to hit the Queen vessel's core now. Jace's mind flashed to Lena, to Brandt's bad call, to the blood in the sand. He wasn't losing another squad. All units, form on me. We're going in. The Nightshade led a wedge of Vipers, punching through the swarm. Drones kamikazed, their claws raking Jace's hull. He fired back, plasma rounds shredding them, but the Queen vessel's turrets opened up a wall of green fire. 2 Vipers exploded, their pilot screams cut short. Jace's cockpit sparked, but he held course, the Queen vessel's core glowing like a heart in his sights. "Rico, EMPs. Sanaa, cover!" Jace roared. Rico's charges hit, scrambling the turrets. Sanaa's shots cleared a path. Jace armed his plasma missiles, but a drone clipped his wing, sending the nightshade spinning. Chun screamed, but Jace stabilized, his hands steady from years of instinct. "Chun, disruptor, now!" Jace yelled. Chun fired the neural disruptor, and the Queen vessel's drones faltered, their movements jerky. Jace launched his missiles, the core erupting in a blinding flash. The Queen vessel shuddered, its hull cracking, but it wasn't enough. The swarm regrouped, and the Crucible's shields buckled under a fresh barrage. Voss's voice crackled through. "Cade, fall back. We're evacuating non-combatants." "No," Jace growled. "We end this." He turned to Chun. "Doc, can you overload that disruptor? Take out the Queen's signal for good." Chun hesitated. "It'll burn out the Nightshade's systems. You won't make it back." Jace's eyes flicked to the data chip in his pocket. Lena's face flashed in his mind. "Do it." Chun worked frantically, rerouting power. The Nightshade groaned, its console sparking. Jace dove toward the Queen vessel's core, drones swarming. Rico and Sanaa fought to clear his path, their fighters taking hits. The disruptor hummed, then screamed, a pulse ripping through the void. The Queen vessel's signal died, and the swarm collapsed, drones drifting aimlessly. But the Nightshade was done. Its systems fried. It drifted toward the Queen vessel's wreckage. Jace grabbed Chun, shoving him into an escape pod. "Get out. Document, tell Voss I didn't go rogue." Chun protested, but Jace sealed the pod and launched it. He turned back, alone, the Nightshade's cockpit dark. The Queen vessel exploded, a supernova that lit the void. The Crucible held, its cannons mopping up the scattered drones. In the hangar, Voss met the survivors. Rico and Sanaa limped from their fighters, battered but alive. Chun stumbled out of the pod, tears in his eyes. "He saved us," he said. "Jace, he's gone." Voss's face was stone, but her voice cracked. "He was a bastard, but he was ours." The Kryn were broken, for now. But the void was vast, and more would come. The Crucible stood, a testament to humanity's defiance, scarred but unbroken. The void outside the Crucible was a graveyard of twisted metal and Kryn husks, but the war wasn't over. The station's shields flickered at critical levels, and its corridors echoed with the clatter of Marines prepping for what Commander Elena Voss called the last stand. Jace Cade's sacrifice had shattered the Kryn Queen vessel, scattering their swarm, but the enemy wasn't done. Long-range sensors pinged a new threat. A second Kryn fleet, smaller but deadlier, led by a massive hive fortress, an Alpha Queen, the heart of their invasion. It was cloaked, lurking beyond the red dwarf's corona, and it was coming to finish where the first wave started. In the command center, Voss stood over a hollow display, her face carved from stone. The room was a skeleton crew. Most officers were dead or manning defenses. Rico, Sanaa, and Dr. Liam Chun stood nearby, their armor scarred from the last fight. Jace's absence hung heavy, a void as tangible as the approaching enemy. Voss's eyes flicked to the squad, her voice steady but strained. "The Alpha Queen ship is 10 hours out. We've got 200 fighters, 3 frigates, and the Crucible's cannons. If we don't stop them, Earth's next." Rico twirled a plasma charge, his grin forced. "No, Jace, no problem, right? We blow the bugs to hell anyway." Sanaa's gaze was cold, her sniper rifle slung across her back. "He'd say we're idiots for standing around talking." Chun clutched his data slate, his voice urgent. "The Alpha Queen signal is stronger than the last. It's overriding our disruptors. But I found something in Harris's blood, Kryn pheromones with a human-specific marker. The traitors aren't just mind-controlled. They're engineered." Voss's eyes narrowed. "Engineered how?" Hybrids, Chin said. The Kryn are splicing their biology into humans. Harris wasn't the only one. I've traced the marker to 5 others, station engineers, all with access to critical systems. The room went silent. Voss slammed a fist on the console. Find them. Now. If they sabotage us again, we're done. Deck 31 was a maze of coolant pipes and power relays. A perfect hiding spot for traitors. Rico led the way, his demolitions scanner sniffing for tampering. Sana took the high ground, her scope sweeping the shadows. Chun followed, his slate synced to the station's biosensors, tracking the hybrid markers. Voss had joined them, her pistol drawn, her trust in Jace's squad outweighing her usual caution. Got a hit, Chun whispered, pointing to a maintenance hub. 2 signatures moving fast. Rico grinned. Time to party. They moved like predators, silent and lethal. The hub was a cavern of humming servers, lit by flickering conduits. 2 engineers, both hybrids, their eyes glowing with Kryn amber, worked at a console, data spikes jacked in. One turned, its movements jerky, and hissed, its mouth splitting into mandibles. The other drew a plasma cutter, its blade flaring. Sana's rifle cracked, dropping the first hybrid with a headshot. Rico tossed a charge, vaporizing the second, but the console sparked, its sabotage already in motion. Chun dove to it, his slate overriding the code. They're targeting the reactor core. If it goes, the station's gone. Voss fired at a third hybrid lunging from the shadows, its claws raking her arm. She grunted but held her ground, emptying her clip. Chin, shut it down. Trying. Chin's fingers flew across the slate. The console's red lights blinked green, the sabotage halted. But the biosensors screamed. 2 more hybrids were heading for the shield generators. Moo! Voss barked, blood dripping from her arm. They sprinted through the deck, the station shaking as Kryn pods breached the outer hull. The hybrids were faster than Harris, their Kryn biology making them lethal. Sana took one down from a catwalk, but the second reached the shield controls, its data spike glowing. Rico tackled it, his knife slashing. The hybrid screeched, its claws tearing his side, but Rico laughed, planting a charge on its chest. Eat this, bug. The explosion painted the walls green, but Rico collapsed, clutching his wound. Stay with us, Rico. Voss shouted, dragging him back. Sana covered them, her shots precise despite the chaos. Chun sealed the shield controls, his slate confirming the systems were secure. But the victory was short-lived. The station's alarms blared. The Kryn fleet had arrived. The final battle erupted with a ferocity that shook the Crucible to its core. The Alpha Queen's hive fortress loomed in the void, a grotesque cathedral of flesh and steel, spawning drones by the thousands. Its bioplasma cannons hammered the station, each hit draining the shields. Viper fighters swarmed, their pilots fighting with desperate courage, but the Kryn were relentless, their hive mind sharper, deadlier. Voss took command from the bridge, her voice steady over the comms. All units, prioritize the fortress's core. Kate showed us how. Hit hard, hit fast. Sana led a fighter wing, her Viper weaving through drone swarms, her shots crippling launchers. Rico, patched up but pale, rigged a frigate with overload charges, turning it into a flying bomb. Chun worked from the command center, his neural disruptor recalibrated to target the Alpha Queen signal. But the fortress's defenses were brutal, adaptive shields, bioturrets, and drones that learned with every hit. Sana's voice crackled through. We can't break through. Their shields are too strong. Chin's slate pinged. I've got a lock on the Queen's frequency, but we need to get inside. A direct pulse to her core might collapse the hive mind. Voss hesitated, then made the call. Sana, Rico, form up. You're going in. I'll lead the distraction. The squad launched in their Vipers, Voss joining them in a command fighter. The station's cannons roared, drawing the fortress's fire, while the frigates rammed Kryn ships, buying time. Sana's precision kept the drones at bay, but Rico's frigate took a hit, its hull breaching. I'm good, he growled, steering it toward the fortress's core. Voss's fighter dove, drawing turret fire. Go now, she ordered. Sanaa and Rico punched through a weak point, their fighters landing in the fortress's pulsating interior. Chen's disruptor hummed, its pulse scrambling drones, but the Alpha Queen loomed, a colossus of spines and eyes, her screeches shaking the chamber. Sanaa fired, her rounds bouncing off the Queen's armor. Rico planted his charges, but a claw impaled his leg, pinning him. "Go!" he shouted, arming the detonator. Sanaa hesitated, then obeyed, dragging Chun to their fighter. The charges blew, the Queen's scream echoing as the core ruptured. The fortress shuddered, its drones collapsing. But the cost was high. Rico's frigate was gone, a fireball in the void. Voss's fighter was hit, spiraling but intact. Sanaa landed back on the crucible, her face blank with grief. The Kryn fleet scattered, their hive mind broken, but the crucible was a wreck, its decks littered with the dead. Weeks later, the crucible limped on, its scars a testament to humanity's survival. The traitor conspiracy was rooted out. Chen's biosensors identified the last hybrids, and Voss personally led the purge. The Kryn were quiet, their invasion broken, but the void held its breath, waiting for the next swarm. In the station's memorial hall, a steel wall bore the names of the fallen. Jace Reaver Arcades was carved at the top, beside Rico's and Lena Marek's. Voss stood before it, her arm bandaged, her eyes heavy. Sanaa approached, her sniper rifle slung across her back. "He'd hate this," she said, nodding at the wall. "Too much fuss." Voss's lips twitched, almost a smile. "He'd call us idiots for mourning him. But he saved us. All of us." Chun joined them, his lab coat replaced by a UEC uniform. "I've analyzed the Kryn data. They'll come again, but we're learning. Jace's disruptor tactic, it's our edge." Voss nodded. "Then we rebuild. For Jace, for Rico, for everyone we lost. Humanity doesn't break." On Earth, word of the Crucible S stand spread, a spark of defiance in a fractured world. The UEC rallied, new recruits flooding to the station. Jace's name became a call to arms, a reminder that even a broken blade could cut deep. In the void, the Crucible stood watch, its 10,000 souls ready for the next fight, their will forged in blood and iron. The void around the Crucible churned with the wreckage of war, shattered Viper fighters, Kryn drone husks, and the scorched remains of stealth ships. The station, a colossal fortress orbiting the Red Dwarf, stood scarred but defiant, its 10,000 souls braced for the fight of their lives. Commander Elena Voss watched the hollow display in the command center, her bandaged arm throbbing as red blips multiplied across the starfield. The Overqueen's hive fortress, a grotesque titan of pulsating flesh and jagged spires, led a fleet of hive ships and thousands of drones. It was no mere invasion, it was annihilation. Voss's voice cut through the bridge's tension like a blade. "All stations, battle alert. Shields to maximum. Cannons, target their vanguard. Fighter wings, prepare to launch." Dr. Liam Chun stood at a console, his data slate synced to a prototype device, a neural disruptor upgraded from Jace Cade's final mission. His hands shook, but his voice was steady. "The disruptor's ready, Commander. It's tuned to the Overqueen's frequency. A direct hit could collapse their hive mind, but we need to get it within a kilometer of her core." Voss's eyes flicked to Sanaa, who leaned against the wall, her sniper rifle cradled like child. Sanaa's face was stone, but her eyes burned with Jace's fire. "Sanaa, you're leading the strike team. Get Chen's weapon to that fortress. No mistakes." Sanaa nodded, her voice low, like Jace would have done. The mention of Jace hung heavy. His sacrifice had broken the first Kryn wave, but the Overqueen was a new beast, smarter, stronger. Its hive mind a psychic storm that drowned Chen's earlier disruptors. Worse, the traitor conspiracy lingered like a cancer. Chen's discovery of the hybrid lab on Deck 49 had rooted out sleeper agents, but the biosensors still pinged faint Kryn markers among the crew. Someone was still playing for the enemy. "Chun," Voss said, "keep scanning for hybrids. If they sabotage us now, we're done." Chen's slate glowed, his fingers flying. "I'm picking up something faint, but it's in the command structure. Someone close." Voss's jaw tightened. Find them. Fast. The Overqueen's fleet hit like a tidal wave, a black swarm that blotted out the stars. The hive fortress loomed, its bioplasma cannons firing lances that melted the Crucible's outer hull. Drones poured from its spires, their claws glinting as they latched onto the station, burrowing through weakened plating. The Crucible's cannons roared, shredding dozens, but the swarm was endless, adapting to every salvo. Sanaa launched in her Viper, leading a wing of 20 fighters, Chun strapped into her co-pilot seat with the disruptor, a sleek cylinder pulsing with blue light. The void was chaos, Viper pilots weaving through drone swarms, their plasma cannons blazing. Sanaa's HUD screamed with targets, her instincts honed by Jace's training. Stay tight, she ordered. Hit their launchers. Protect the payload. A frigate, the Iron Dawn, flanked her wing, its turrets carving paths through the drones. But the Kryn adapted, their shields hardening, their movements synchronized by the Overqueen's will. A bioplasma lance grazed the Iron Dawn, breaching its hull. The frigate's comms crackled with screams, then went silent. Push through, Sanaa barked, diving toward the fortress. Her Viper danced, dodging claws and plasma, her shots crippling a launcher. Chun clutched the disruptor, his voice urgent. We're too far. Need to get closer. The station shook behind them, its shields flickering. Voss's voice crackled through. Sanaa, report. We're taking hits on decks 12 and 30. Boarding pods breached the hull. Sanaa gritted her teeth. We're on it, Commander. Hold the line. Inside the Crucible, Marines fought a desperate battle in the breached decks. Kryn drones, 6-foot horrors of obsidian exoskeletons and razor claws, swarmed through corridors, their mandibles clicking in a deafening chorus. Marine squads and exosuits held choke points, their pulse rifles blazing, but the Kryn were relentless, their wounds sealing mid-fight. Voss led a defense team on Deck 12, her pistol spitting plasma as she coordinated via comms. Seal the bulkheads. Divert power to the cannons. A drone lunged, its claw grazing her thigh, but she rolled, firing point-blank into its skull. Green ichor sprayed, and the creature collapsed. Beside her, Lieutenant Quan, bloodied but alive from the Deck 49 fight, manned a turret, mowing down drones. They're targeting the reactor core, he shouted. If they breach it, we're done. Voss's mind raced to the traitor threat. Chen's warning about a high-ranking hybrid gnawed at her. She opened a secure channel. Chun, any hits on that signal? Chen's voice was frantic, patched through from Sanaa's Viper. It's stronger now, someone in the command center. I'm narrowing it down. Voss's blood ran cold. The command center was her domain, staffed by her most trusted officers. She turned to Captain Malik, her second-in-command, a grizzled veteran who'd served with her since Earth. Malik locked down the bridge. No one in or out. Malik nodded, but his eyes flickered. Amber, just for a moment. Voss's instinct screamed. She drew her pistol, aiming at his chest. Step back, Captain. The room froze. Malik's face twisted, his voice unnaturally calm. You're paranoid, Elena. The stress is getting to you. Chen's voice burst through. It's him. Malik's the hybrid. His biomarkers spiking. Malik's human facade cracked, his mouth splitting into mandibles, his arms sprouting claws. You're too late, he hissed, his voice layered with Kryn static. The Overqueen sees all. He lunged, faster than humanly possible, his claw aiming for Voss's throat. She fired, plasma rounds punching through his chest, but Malik kept coming, his hybrid body shrugging off wounds. Quan tackled him, pinning the creature as Voss emptied her clip. Malik screeched, his body convulsing, then went still, his amber eyes dimming. Voss panted, her heart pounding. Chun, how many more? I'm scanning, Chun replied. Malik was the primary. No other signals for now. The station shook again, a bioplasma hit breaching Deck 30. Voss rallied her team. Move! Protect the core. In the void, Sanaa's wing fought a losing battle. The Overqueen's fortress loomed, its core pulsing like a diseased heart. Drones swarmed, their claws tearing Vipers apart. Sanaa's fighter was scorched, its left thruster sparking, but she held course, Jace's voice echoing in her mind. Hit hard, hit fast. Chen, we're out of time, she shouted. Activate the disruptor. Chen's fingers flew across the device, rerouting power. It's charging 30 seconds. We need to be inside the core. Sanaa dove, dodging a plasma lance that vaporized a Viper behind her. The fortress's hull yawned open, a maw of writhing flesh. She fired missiles, blasting a path, and plunged inside, the Viper shaking as drones clawed its hull. The core chamber was a nightmare, organic walls pulsing, the Overqueen a colossus of spines and glowing eyes, her psychic scream rattling Sanaa's bones. Now, Chun, Sanaa yelled. The disruptor fired, a blue pulse ripping through the chamber. The Overqueen screeched, drones collapsing mid-attack, their hive mind fracturing. Sanaa followed with plasma missiles, tearing into the core. The fortress shuddered, its walls rupturing, but the Overqueen lashed out, a claw smashing the Viper's cockpit. Sanaa ejected, her exosuit sealing as she floated in the chamber. Chun, strapped to the co-pilot's seat, fired the disruptor again, its final pulse burning out the device. The Overqueen convulsed, her signal dying, and the fortress began to collapse. Sanaa grabbed Chun, dragging him to an escape pod as the chamber erupted in fire. On the Crucible, Voss's team held the reactor core, Marines piling Kryn bodies at choke points. The drones faltered, their coordination gone, and the station's cannons mopped up the scattered swarm. The Hive fortress exploded in the void, a supernova that lit the Crucible's scarred hull. Sanaa's pod landed in Hangar 9, Chun coughing but alive. Voss met them, her face bloodied but resolute. The fleet's retreating. You did it. Sanaa shook her head, her voice raw. Not me. Chen's weapon. Jace's plan. Chun clutched his slate, his eyes haunted. Malik was the last hybrid. I've locked the biosensors to prevent more. But they'll try again. Voss nodded, her gaze on the void. Then we'll be ready. For Jace, for Rico, for everyone. The Crucible stood, its 10,000 souls battered but unbroken, a beacon of humanity's defiance. The Kryn were beaten, but the war was far from over. The Crucible hung in the void like a wounded beast, its hull scarred from the Overqueen's assault, its 10,000 souls clinging to hope. The Kryn fleet had retreated after the destruction of their Hive fortress, but Commander Elena Voss knew better than to trust the silence. Long-range sensors pinged a new threat, a Kryn remnant fleet, rallied by a secondary Overqueen, a smaller but cunning hive mind hidden in the Red Dwarf's asteroid belt. It was regrouping, spawning drones at an alarming rate. If it reached full strength, the Crucible would fall, and with it, humanity's last bastion. Voss stood in the command center, her bandaged arms stiff, her eyes locked on the hollow display. Sanaa, bloodied but unbowed, cleaned her sniper rifle nearby, her silence louder than any words. Dr. Liam Chun hunched over his data slate, tweaking the neural disruptor's final upgrade, a compact warhead capable of frying a hive-mind synaptic core. The device was untested, a gamble born from Jace Cade's tactics and Chen's desperation. We've got one shot, Voss said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into her face. The Overqueen's in that asteroid belt, rebuilding her swarm. We hit her now, or we're done. Sanaa's eyes met hers, cold and resolute. Jace would have flown straight in. No hesitation. Then we do it his way, Voss replied. Sanaa, you're leading the strike. Chun, your warhead's the key. I'm flying with you. Chun looked up, startled. Commander, you're needed here. No, Voss cut him off. This ends now. For Jace, for Rico, for everyone we've lost. The plan was suicide, even by Jace's standards. A single Viper squadron, 10 fighters, including Voss, Sanaa, and Chun, would infiltrate the asteroid belt, deliver the warhead to the Overqueen's core, and detonate it. The Crucible's remaining frigates would provide a diversion, drawing the swarm's fire, while the station's cannons covered their retreat, if there was one. Hangar 9 buzzed with grim purpose. Techs loaded the Vipers with plasma missiles, their hands shaking from fatigue. Sanaa climbed into her fighter, the Nightshade 2, a refitted version of Jace's ship, its hull painted with a Reaver's skull in his honor. Chun strapped in beside her, the warhead secured in the cockpit, its blue glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Voss took the lead Viper, her face a mask of determination. "Stay tight," Voss said over the comms. "We get in, plant the warhead, get out. No heroics." Sanaa's voice was dry. Jace would have laughed at that. The squadron launched, the void swallowing them. The asteroid belt was a maze of jagged rocks and Kryn biosigns, the Overqueen's ship hidden in a dense cluster. Drones patrolled like vultures, their claws glinting in the red dwarf's light. The Crucible-S frigates opened fire, luring the swarm into a dogfight, their cannons blazing against bioplasma lances. Sanaa weaved through the asteroids, her Viper dodging debris and drone claws. Voss's squadron followed, their formation tight, but the Kryn were ready. A wave of drones, faster, sleeker than before, swarmed from the shadows, their movements eerily precise. The Overqueen's hive mind was learning, adapting to Chen's disruptor tech. "Chen, talk to me," Sanaa shouted, jinking to avoid a plasma blast. "It's countering the disruptor." Chen yelled, his slate sparking. "I'm recalibrating. Need 30 seconds." A drone clipped Voss's wing, sending her Viper spinning. She stabilized, firing a salvo that shredded the attacker, but 2 more Vipers exploded, their pilot screams cut short. Sanaa's HUD screamed with targets, her fingers dancing across the controls. She fired missiles, blasting a path through the swarm, but the Overqueen's ship loomed, a pulsating orb of flesh and metal, its core glowing like a malignant eye. "We're going in," Sanaa barked, diving toward the core. Drones swarmed, their claws tearing at her hull. Voss covered her, her Viper weaving through plasma fire, her voice steady. "Sanaa, you've got this." Like Jace, the Nightshade 2 plunged into the Overqueen's maw, its interior a labyrinth of writhing membranes and glowing conduits. Drones lunged from the walls, their screeches deafening. Sanaa fired, her plasma cannons shredding them, but the Viper-S system sparked, its hull breached. Chen clutched the warhead, his voice frantic. "I've got the frequency. Arming now." The Overqueen loomed at the chamber's heart, a colossus of spines and eyes, its psychic scream shaking the Viper. Sanaa dodged a claw that smashed the cockpit's edge, glass cracking. "Chen, do it." Chun slammed the warhead's trigger, and a blue pulse erupted, the disruptor's energy frying the Overqueen's synaptic core. The creature convulsed, its drones collapsing mid-attack, their bodies drifting like ash. Sanaa fired her last missiles, the core erupting in a fireball. The ship shuddered, its walls collapsing, but the Nightshade 2 was trapped, its engines dead. Voss's voice crackled through. "Sanaa, eject. Now." Sanaa shoved Chun into the escape pod, her hands steady despite the chaos. "Go. Document, tell them we finished it." "Sanaa, no." Chun protested, but she sealed the pod and launched it. The Nightshade 2 burned, its hull disintegrating as Sanaa fired one last shot, ensuring the core's destruction. The Overqueen's ship exploded, a supernova that lit the asteroid belt, scattering the Kryn remnant fleet. Voss's Viper caught Chen's pod, her face grim as she piloted back to the Crucible. The station's cannons mopped up the drifting drones, its shields holding just long enough. The war was over, for now. 6 months later, the Crucible stood reborn, its hull patched, its decks humming with life. The Kryn threat was silent, their hive minds shattered by the sacrifices of Jace, Rico, and Sanaa. The station's 10,000 souls, soldiers, scientists, and new recruits from Earth, worked to fortify it, their resolve a testament to humanity's defiance. The red dwarf's light cast long shadows across the memorial wall, where Sanaa's name now joined Jace's and Rico's, etched in steel as eternal as the void. Commander Elena Voss stood before the wall, her uniform crisp, her arm healed but scarred. Dr. Liam Chun stood beside her, No longer the nervous scientist, but a hardened leader, his disruptor tech now standard in UEC arsenals. The traitor conspiracy was dead. Malik's betrayal had been the last, his hybrid network dismantled by Chen's biosensors. But the cost had been heavy, and Voss felt it in every quiet moment. He'd have hated this, Chen said, nodding at the wall. Jace, Sana, they'd call it sentimental crap. Voss's lips twitched, almost a smile. They'd be right, but they earned it. Jace showed us how to fight dirty. Sana showed us how to finish it. Earth was changing. Jace's story, his rogue defiance, his sacrifice, had spread like wildfire, uniting fractured nations. The UEC poured resources into the Crucible, turning it into a hub for interstellar defense. New stations were planned, each named for a fallen hero: Cade's Bastion, Rico's Hammer, Sana's Reach. Humanity was no longer just surviving. It was preparing, its eyes on the stars. Chun adjusted his slate, now a command interface. The Kryn are quiet, but they're out there. My sensors picked up faint signals in the Orion arm. They'll come again. Then we'll be ready, Voss said, her voice iron. Jace taught us that. No surrender, no retreat. We fight, we win, we live. In the hangar, a new squadron trained, their Vipers painted with Reaver skulls. The recruits, young, fierce, inspired, called themselves Reavers, their battle cry echoing Jace's name. The Crucible stood as humanity's spear, its light a challenge to the void. The Kryn would return, but so would humanity's fire, forged in blood and iron, unyielding to the end. The Crucible stood as a scarred sentinel in the void, its 10,000 souls hardened by war. The Kryn remnant fleet, led by the secondary Over-Queen, had been shattered in the asteroid belt, but Dr. Liam Chen's sensors warned of a new threat. A final Kryn armada, massing in the Orion arm, led by a prime queen, a hive mind of unparalleled power. Its fleet was vast, a swarm of hive ships and drones that dwarfed all previous assaults. If it reached the Crucible, humanity's defiance would end in ash. Commander Elena Voss stood in the command center, her face etched with resolve. The station's shields were at 15%, its fighter wings depleted, but the crew's spirit burned bright, fueled by the sacrifices of Jace, Rico, and Sana. Chun, now a de facto leader, worked at a console, his upgraded neural disruptor warhead, dubbed the Reaver's Sting, ready for deployment. The warhead, built from Kryn biotech reverse-engineered from the Deck 49 lab, could sever a hive mind synaptic network across a star system. We've got 8 hours, Voss said, her voice steady. The Prime Queen's fleet is moving fast. Chun, is the Sting operational? Chen's eyes flicked from his slate, his hands steady despite the stakes. It's ready, but it needs to be delivered to the Queen's core. A single Viper won't cut it. We need a capital ship to punch through. Voss nodded, her mind racing. The Iron Dawn is our last frigate. I'll lead the strike. Chun, you're with me. We'll need your brain on site. A young pilot, Lieutenant Arya Holt, a Reaver recruit inspired by Jace's legend, stepped forward. Her eyes burned with defiance. I'm flying wing, Commander. Sana train me. I'm ready. Voss studied her, seeing Jace's fire in her gaze. All right, Holt. Let's end this. The Iron Dawn launched from the Crucible, flanked by a squadron of Viper fighters led by Holt. Chen sat in the frigate science bay, the Reaver's Sting wired into the ship's systems. Voss piloted from the bridge, her hands steady on the controls. The Orion arm was a graveyard of stars and debris, the Kryn armada a black tide flooding the void. The Prime Queen's ship loomed at its heart, a leviathan of pulsating flesh and glowing spires, its bioplasma cannons lighting the darkness. Brace for impact, Voss shouted as the armada opened fire. Drones swarmed, their claws tearing at the Iron Dawn's hull. Viper fighters danced through the chaos, Holt's squadron weaving with Jace-like precision, their plasma cannons shredding launchers. But the Kryn were relentless, their hive mind adapting to every move. Chen's voice crackled through. The Sting is charged, but we need to be inside the Queen's core now. Voss pushed the Iron Dawn forward, its shields sparking under bioplasma barges. A viper exploded, then another, but Holt held her wing together, her shots clearing a path. "Stay with me," she barked, her voice echoing Sanaa's calm fury. The frigate plunged into the Queen's ship, its maw a nightmare of writhing membranes. Drones lunged from the walls, their screeches deafening. Voss fired the ship's turrets, carving a path, but a claw breached the hull, venting air. Chun sealed the science bay, his fingers flying across the Sting-S controls. 10 seconds, he shouted. The Prime Queen loomed, a colossus of spines and eyes, its psychic scream shaking the frigate. Voss dodged a plasma lance, the bridge sparking. Chun now. The Reaver's sting fired, a blinding blue pulse ripping through the chamber. The Queen convulsed, drones collapsing across the fleet, their hive mind shattered. Voss launched the frigate's missiles, the core erupting in a fireball. The ship shuddered, its systems failing, but Holt's Viper rammed a drone blocking their exit, clearing the way. "Move!" Holt yelled, her fighter scorched but intact. The Iron Dawn limped out as the Queen's ship exploded, a supernova that scattered the Kryn armada. The Crucible's cannons mopped up the remnants, its crew cheering as the void cleared. Back on the Crucible, the victory was bittersweet. The Iron Dawn returned, its hull barely holding, and half of Holt's squadron was gone. But the Kryn were broken, their Prime Queen dead, their fleets drifting aimlessly. Chen's Reaver's sting had turned the tide, its biotech core, a fusion of human ingenuity and Kryn biology, proving humanity's ability to adapt and overcome. In the station's labs, Chen led a team of scientists to refine the technology. The Kryn's organic metal alloys were reverse-engineered, yielding stronger hulls for Viper fighters and shields that mimicked Kryn adaptability. The Sting-S synaptic disruptor was scaled up, integrated into the Crucible's defenses, ensuring no hive mind could threaten them again. Chun named the new systems Reaver Protocols, a nod to Jace's unorthodox tactics that inspired their creation. Voss oversaw the upgrades, her leadership tempered by loss. In a briefing, she addressed the crew, her voice carrying Jace's defiance. "We've taken their tech, made it ours. Jace, Rico, Sanaa, they gave us this chance. We don't waste it." Holt, now a squad leader, worked with engineers to train pilots on the upgraded Vipers. "Jace would have loved these," she said, testing a fighter's new plasma lance. Fast, mean, and ready to kill. As the Crucible rebuilt, a signal pierced the void, not Kryn, but alien, structured, and non-hostile. Chen's sensors traced it to a small fleet of sleek, crystalline ships approaching from the galactic rim. The crew tensed, expecting another fight, but Voss ordered to stand down. "Let's hear them out," she said, her instincts honed by years of war. The alien ships docked, revealing the Elthar, a species of luminescent, humanoid beings with translucent skin and telepathic speech. Their leader, Elara, projected a message of peace. The Elthar had fought the Kryn for centuries, their worlds ravaged by the hive mind. They'd watched the Crucible's stand, impressed by humanity's defiance, and offered an alliance. "They're not like us," Chen warned, scanning their biology. "But their tech, energy-based, not organic, could complement ours." Voss met Elara in the hangar, her pistol holstered but ready. "Why now?" she asked. Alara's thoughts echoed in her mind, calm and clear. "Asterisk, your kind broke the Kryn where we could not. We seek partners, not masters. Asterisk." Negotiations were tense, but fruitful. The Elthar shared their shield tech, which fused with the Reaver protocols to make the Crucible near invulnerable. In return, humanity offered Kryn biodata, helping the Elthar counter future hive threats. Holt bonded with an Elthar pilot, their shared love of flight bridging the gap between species. A year later, the Crucible shone as a beacon of human-Elthar unity. Its decks bustled with mixed crews, humans training alongside translucent aliens, their combined tech forging a new era. The station, now home to 12,000 souls, was the hub of a growing interstellar alliance, with outposts named Cade's Bastion and Sanaa's Reach dotting nearby systems. Voss stood before the memorial wall, Jace's name at its heart. Chun joined her, his slate now a diplomatic tool as much as a scientific one. "They're calling it the Reaver Alliance," he said, a rare smile breaking through. Jace would have hated the name. Voss chuckled, a sound she hadn't made in years. "He'd call us idiots, then fight harder for it." The Kryn were silent, their signals gone, but the void was vast, and humanity was ready. The Reaver protocols armed their ships, Elthar's shields guarded their stations, and Jace's legacy, a fire of defiance and sacrifice, burned in every heart. The Crucible stood as proof. Humanity didn't just survive, it thrived, forging friendships in the stars, ready for whatever came next.